All right, today we're diving into a really provocative idea. We're looking at a text that asks a pretty huge question. What if the constant struggles we see in the Hispanic and Arab worlds aren't really about politics or economics, but about something way, way deeper, a kind of shared cultural inheritance?
I mean, you've probably wondered about this, right? Why do some countries just seem stuck in this loop of crisis after crisis, never quite able to get stable or really stand up for themselves on the world stage?
So, the source we're digging into today, it pretty much throws out all the usual suspects like geopolitics or economic models. Instead, it points the finger at a single cultural problem that it claims has been rotting away for centuries. Let's break down the argument, starting with the most obvious symptom.
Okay, so first up, the argument kicks off by looking at something you can see pretty clearly, a consistent pattern of national weakness.
The text basically paints this picture of the world where some nations are just perpetual targets. It's like they can't seem to shake off the influence and the ambitions of other, more organized outside powers.
And you can really see this dynamic in the specific examples the author gives. They point to countries like Venezuela or Panama, saying they're constantly dealing with American interests. Or look at the Gulf states, being influenced by all sorts of regional players. According to this text, this isn't just something that happens now and then. Nope. It's the same old story of being the weaker player again and again.
And listen to the language the author uses to describe what could happen to these nations. It is incredibly intense. This isn't just about being influenced. It's a stark warning about being completely consumed by forces from the outside.
So if these countries are always the target, you have to ask, where does the problem really come from? Well, according to this text, the story doesn't actually begin with those foreign powers at all. The real weakness, it argues, is an enemy on the inside.
Here's the core idea. Being vulnerable to the outside world isn't the cause of the problem. It's just a symptom of a really deep internal sickness.
So what does that sickness look like? Well, the source describes this culture of just extreme corruption and hypocrisy. A place where countries are getting looted not just by their own leaders, but by their own people too. It creates this state of total internal fragility. And that, right there, leads to the biggest question in this whole theory. Okay, fine. Corruption and hypocrisy are the symptoms. But what's the actual disease? Where is all of this coming from?
And this brings us right to the heart of the diagnosis. The author gives this deep underlying issue a very specific and, a very provocative name, the Hispano-Arab curse. And there it is. The theory says that the fundamental problem tying these two worlds together is a deep, ancient, and absolutely paralyzing level of distrust. It's a cultural trait that's so powerful it makes things like cooperation, unity, and real progress almost impossible.
The text really hammers home that this isn't some new thing. It calls these problems millenarian things, issues that are so old, so baked into the culture that they've been hanging around for centuries with no solution in sight.
So you see how it all connects, right? According to the source, this profound distrust is step one. It prevents unity. That lack of unity then lets corruption run wild. And that internal rot creates this fundamental weakness that basically leaves the front door wide open for external exploitation. It's a chain reaction.
So if that's the diagnosis, what's the cure? Well, the source does suggest a way out, but man, it makes it sound like an almost impossible challenge.
And the logic is pretty simple, right? If foreign powers aren't the root cause of the problem, then they can't be the solution either. Any help from the outside is like putting a tiny Band-Aid on a massive internal injury. It completely misses the point.
Instead, the path forward is laid out as this huge, two-part internal revolution. It's not about new policies or new governments. It's about a total transformation of the collective spirit and of the people themselves.
So, the ultimate takeaway from this text is that the only escape from this cycle of decay and exploitation is a radical, profound cultural shift that can only and must only start from the inside out. But just when the theory seems to have everything all wrapped up, the author throws in one last fascinating little wrinkle, an observation that kind of complicates the whole picture.
Yeah, the text briefly brings up the case of El Salvador under its current leadership, and it uses the specific word anomalous. Like, hey, wait a minute, this one doesn't quite fit the pattern. Something different might be happening here.
And this is the final hanging question that the source leaves us with. Does this one case represent a genuinely new path forward? Proof that this kind of radical internal change is actually possible? Or Is it just a flash in the pan, a temporary exception that in the end only proves how powerful the centuries-old rule really is? The text offers no answers, leaving us to just watch and wonder.